Hawks takes the lead, the Vestiges fight back, and Jiro loses her power? Let's talk about all of this and more as we dive right into the newest chapter of My Hero Academia. So My Hero Academia Chapter 355 is finally out, and with it we get to see Jiro, Tokoyami, and Hawks' desperate assault on the King of Villainy and Testicle Face's All for One. And I'm not gonna lie, things do get real bloody. But before I begin talking about this chapter, don't forget to try smash that like button and slide on into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. And now, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Chapter 355, titled Extras. This chapter opens up with Endeavour severely injured on the ground, waking up in a panic at the thought of his two sons, Toya and Shoto, being in danger. However, upon waking up, he quickly realizes how foolish it was for him to let All for One get under his skin like he did. And as a bloodied and battered Endeavour tries to get to his feet, he thinks to himself how the entire situation they are in now, with Dabi, All for One, and the fall of Hero Society, is entirely his fault. So it's up to him to fix it. Following this, the story then cuts back to All for One, Hawks, Jiro, and Tokoyami in the sky, with Hawks stating that he knows Endeavour is alive and that All for One's attack must have missed his lungs because he can feel the vibrations of Endeavour's breathing through his feathers. In other words, Endeavour is alive and can still fight. So Hawks' plan is to stall for time until Endeavour is ready to return. With the knowledge of Endeavour's survival, Hawks yells out at Tokoyami, but before he can say anything, Tokoyami shouts back at his old mentor that him and Jiro were sent to this area to provide air support, and that's exactly what they will do, regardless of how dangerous the situation really is. So Hawks can hold his breath if he is thinking of telling them to run away. In hearing this comment from Tokoyami, Hawks internally acknowledges his need for help right now, and so he asks Tokoyami, "Will you save me again, hero?" To which Tokoyami responds, "You got it." While all this is going on, All for One, aware of the hero's plan to stall for Endeavour, decides it's high time he ends this little fight and stops wasting time, choosing to activate a bunch of quirks in his arm again, while also unleashing a barrage of giant eel-like creatures from it to attack the hero's weakest link, Jiro. Luckily for the loud sound hero, however, Hawks saves Jiro from this attack by using his feathers to lift her out of the line of fire, while simultaneously launching attack on All for One's helmet himself. I also forgot to mention last time that it was mentioned Recovery Girl couldn't recover Hawks' wings fully. So, to help keep him at full power for this fight, he now uses some prosthetic wings as well as two katanas instead of his usual winged swords. Which, I'm not gonna lie, makes him look even cooler. And I didn't think that was possible. Hawks, after another unsuccessful attempt at breaking All for One's helmet, informs Tokoyami that he should set the pace for the fight, and that Hawks will follow his lead. Tokoyami, then taking charge, catches a falling Jiro and informs her that her quirk is the key to this fight. If she can crack All for One's mask with her sound waves, then they can finally defeat the King of Evil. However, despite her best attempts to keep her posture, Jiro can't help herself from shaking with nerves, noting not only how she couldn't even see All for One's attack coming her way, but she also credits Midoriya and Aoyama for having to deal with the sheer power of All for One's presence for such a long time. And as if he could sense Jiro's anxiety, All for One immediately calls out Jiro's shakiness, teasing her, saying that she must have gone to the battlefield thinking it would be like a school trip. And as he says this, he turns one of his arms into a humongous cannon and fires a giant beam of energy directly at Tokoyami and Jiro, claiming that they are nothing more than the supporting cast who spend too much time around the main cast in hopes of being just like them. Hawks, in a desperate attempt to save the students, fires his feathers into All for One's arm to move it, and he tries to attack All for One. But using his other arm, All for One pierces the winged hero with his iconic rivet stabs, as he laughs about how utterly useless their attempts to take him down were. And with this comment, we see that although Hawks' attempt to save the kids was successful, it didn't save them entirely, as we are greeted with this image image of Jiro with her left ear having been brutally ripped off by All For One's attack. That's right, Jiro has lost one of her earphone jacks. However, it's the darkest moments where a hero truly shines, as despite losing half her quirk, Jiro calls out All For One, saying she doesn't care about all of the nonsense he talks about who's the main cast and who's special. And with tears in her eyes, she loudly declares that all she cares about is that All For One made her friends cry. And with her one earlobe jack, she unleashes her ultimate attack, Heartbeat Wall Legato, sending a huge destructive sound wave right at All For One. All For One, despite being hit directly by this sound wave, does manage to maintain his posture, and he attempts to counter Jiro with an attack of his own, while also declaring that the weakness of a side character is no match for absolute power. However, in a surprising twist, just before All For One can use his quirks, the story cuts to inside of the Vestige world, where we see Vestige All For One is being held back by the vestiges of the peoples whose quirks he stole. Surprised by this turn of events, the King of Villainy questions whether or not this is a lingering effect of New Order, or if it's the true power of the will of people he calls weak. Ergo, the true strength of when the weak work together. And it's because of all these vestiges fighting back that back in the real world, All For One finds himself stunned and unable to fight back against Jiro's attack. So, with All For One unable to move, Jiro shouts at Hawks to take this chance and strike hard. As Hawks desperately flies towards All For One at full speed, he thinks about how although all of his previous attacks seem to have done no damage, he was actually attacking the same spot on All For One's mask. And while not being that strong alone, these successive attacks on the one spot have opened a crack on All For One's mask. And with this, chapter 355 comes to an end, as Hawks uses Jiro's sound wave to vibrate and propel his sword at an insane speed at All For One, declaring that all those little weak attacks really do add up, as he lands a direct hit on the crack in All For One's mask, shattering both his sword and a good portion of All For One's mask. Overall, this was a pretty great chapter. I'm delighted we got to see the continuation of this fight with All For One, and that the story didn't just cut away. But it was also amazing to see Jiro get a proper hero moment. Tokoyami has had plenty of time to shine, so it was really nice seeing Jiro stand up and take the spotlight in this fight. Also, her losing one of her earlobe jacks and essentially half of her quirk genuinely caught me off guard and had me a bit shook. I honestly did not see that coming, but it has me super excited to see just how everyone else gets messed up in this final arc. Now we know people are going to come out of this with life-changing injuries, if they come out of it at all. But let me know what you think of this chapter. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and comment what you think is going to happen next. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.